Johanna Hassan,
Assalamualaikum to everyone. My name is Rashida Ahmed, calling from Watertown, Massachusetts.
Johanna Hassan, Bolton, Massachusetts. Bolton, North Carolina.
Nigeria Wahid, Oakland, California.
Nisa Bismillah, Oakland.
Nigeria Wahid, Oakland, California.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Fatima Juma, Plainfield, New Jersey.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamualaikum, Sister Carolyn. I said Wali Muhammad, Detroit.
Munira Aswir Abdul Musawir, Hampton, Virginia. Assalamualaikum, Ramadan Mubarak.
Wa alaikum assalam. Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. Haji Zahira Shaka in the motherland of Africa. Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamualaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. This is Sister Nina from Augusta, Georgia.
Assalamualaikum, Zahia Najilullah, Ramadan Mubarak from Cleveland, Ohio.
Wa alaikum assalam. Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamualaikum, Sister Diana Ali from New York.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Welcome, Sister Apple from California.
Wa alaikum
Assalamualaikum.
Yep, he's on the screen.
Zaria Sharif, Fort Myers, Florida.
Assalamualaikum, HAFIZA ZARIA, Newark, New Jersey.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamualaikum, Sakina Sabor from Newark, New Jersey, Masjid Al-Haq.
Assalamualaikum, Zahira El-Amin from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Shabri Muhammad, Masjid Al-Haq, Newark, New Jersey.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamualaikum, Sabri Muhammad.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm on my way out. I'm going to do some community work.
Hey, you had to take the
Leader Muhammad.
Assalamualaikum. Ramadan Mubarak.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamualaikum, Sister Aisha Rashid, Danville, Virginia.
This is Rashid Ali, woman of
Amina Abdul, New Jersey. New Jersey.
Leader Muhammad from Mayo, California.
Assalamualaikum,
Peter Johnson, Masjid Muhammad.
Muted. The recording has started.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته ورمضان مبارك. I am so excited. My name is KAMlLAH. I am from Oakland, California. I am the daughter of Imam Fahim Shuaib. As most know me, some are being introduced to me for the first time. I am being introduced to me for the first time. How about that? This is this is truly an honor, and I want to thank Sister Fitra and Study Al-Islam for this opportunity to connect with the womb that bore me, this community that I've been raised in, and that has allowed me the ability to show up fully, authentically, and unashamed of being a Muslim because of the hard work and the foundation that had been laid for me by my elders and the pioneers and those who sacrificed so very much to establish an identity for us that we now benefit from. I want to be sure to acknowledge that because I think it is something that does not get said enough, and I want the elders and our pioneers and the teachers and the scholars who sacrificed so much to ensure that we understand how beautiful this way of life is and how tailor-made for who we are as Valalians, as African Americans in this American experience, that it was tailor-made for us to do the work that is necessary for us to find happiness, for us to know joy, for us to know peace. And this space is a testament to that. Just hearing the names, and I got emotional hearing all of the names of individuals chiming in. I am an energy person. I'm here for all energy. So when I realized it was just going to be on the phone and not in interaction via Zoom, I was like, "Ooh, okay, I need energy." So I'm glad I tapped in early, and this is what I needed to begin. I just heard Sister Fisher giggle a little bit. Am I supposed to give you some space first, or do I just kind of go for it?
First of all, let me say welcome to Study Al-Islam, and I'm not going to take up your time. I'm not going to take up your time, but what I do want you to do is, if you have an earphone, to use your earphone so you can come across a little clearer. We did hear. Okay. I am getting a text that some people are not hearing you clearly, and we want them to hear you. So take your time, because you do have some extra time of performing double duty today. But if you have an earphone, speak in your earphone because it comes off clearly. And no, please proceed with your 3 attributes of Allah. This time is yours.
Okay. Is that better for you?
Much better. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I take it. All right. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge and speak to those that are here, and knowing that everyone who taps in on this line is a testament of your leadership. And many times we become afraid to use that term that we are leaders, but yeah, we are leaders, right? And so this is an energetic exchange amongst leaders, amongst minds, that this information, inshallah, will be of benefit for myself and for those who are listening. So that being said, I open with the ayat from the Quran, Surah 20. Ayat 25 to 28, where it says, "Oh my Lord, expand my chest, ease my task for me, and remove the impediment from my speech, so that they may understand what I say." We are here on the early parts of preparing for Ramadan. We're always preparing for Ramadan, I would like to say, year-round up until we get to this month. And I was charged with the task of sharing out my thoughts on the 3 attributes. The 3 attributes that I was given was AL-MUTAKABBIR, AL-KHALIQ, and AL-BARI. So I'm going to, the way that I move and the way that I share out is I move with the inspiration, and I come with an outline to move with it. And Al-MUTAKABBIR, like this is what's so beautiful about the design and how masterful Allah is. I am an artist at my core. And these 3 attributes spoke so very highly to me as an artist, as someone who is creative, as someone who gets inspired by the environment and our experiences, right? And so Al-Mutakabbir, where it says the one translation is the great, and or it will say the tremendous, or he who is most perfect and worthy of absolute pride. So when I looked at the great, you can't help but to, when I reflect on our community, as we think about Muhammad Ali, where he says, "I am the greatest," right? And this greatness, like we know that Allah is great, but we have the capacity to be the servant of the great. And in us being the servant of the great, then we have to manifest how we move. So this is how I make this connection. When Allah breathed into us of His Spirit, then this is how we came to be. And in this breath, it did not diminish Allah in any way, but it gave us life. I was watching a show where they were doing a heart transplant, and the doctors can connect every vein and every tube and all of the things, right? But if Allah does not say this life is to continue forward, there's nothing the doctors can do. They can't put no level of electricity or any. It has to be by Allah's permission. And so we have the capacity to execute and move forward with what is asked upon us through these attributes, but we will never, ever, 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 ever be Allah. Like never, right? But Allah, in all of Allah's generosity, gives us the ability to be great. So we use a term, we say stand in your greatness, right? It's being able to identify that you are a beautiful, beautiful creation, that you are a beautiful human being, that you have, that what you do, and when you execute education or business or relationship and community, that we pursue and execute it with greatness. So that's Al-Mutakabbir. Al-KHALIQ. Al-KHALIQ is originally, you hear it mostly used as a creator, right? Creator. And when we create, when Allah creates, it gives it a law and an order to it. If there is structure involved, right? So I like the term structure as well, because when you create something, there's a law attached to it, right? That when Allah creates it, it's done. You don't have to figure out, what comes next. It's like it's done. It was done with with kum fayakum. It was done, right? So Allah created the most beautiful, the most perfect laws and structures that are in place, and that we are able to benefit from. It is He who organizes and plans and evaluates creation in such an exact way, without defect, that would lead to total collapse if it wasn't whole and complete within this universe. So that is Al-KHALIQ. Al-BARI, the evolution, the evolver, the fashioner, right? He who brings non-existence into existence. That we came from nothing, and from that nothing, it's like my brain, like in real time, as I was exploring the ideal of this attribute, my brain can't even fathom the idea of nothing from, something from nothing, right? On my human level, we think about how we are able to make, a meal out of two items or what have you, that it can become a bountiful meal. But that's still with the knowledge of something that already exists, right? So how that shows up for us, because we are not Al-Bari, we're Abdul Bari, right? We're Abdul Khaliq, we're Abdul Mutakabbir. And that within itself, it speaks to our intuition. It speaks to the ability for someone to look at sand and have the ability to create glass. But it still comes from the origin of the creativity. Now, these attributes, as I start to combine and put those three ideas together, in a Ramadan session from Imam Muhammad, the session was in 2007, He said, we praise Allah in that position, in the highest position of man, the standing position. And when we are standing, he feels the power, he feels his dignity. And when he feels his dignity, he wants to stand erect, straight up, so that within this position, you will get no trouble. And in this standing, we always start with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And that is all praise is due to Allah. And the additional now gives us with the systems of knowledge, the Lord of all systems of knowledge. And this system of knowledge is something that when I speak about the attributes and the beauty of what we have access to, that Allah gives us access to find the joy, the happiness in all of those things when we understand who Allah is. So these 99 attributes are absolute gifts because in us understanding these attributes, we get closer to understanding what we have the potential to do, what we have the potential to achieve, right? So visualize these attributes like a garden, right? I love the idea and the visuals of a garden, this garden. And as we see within this garden, when we have resource, it's a resource for all of the things that we need for our life. All of the things that we need for our lives are in that garden. But within that garden, that these attributes are directly connected to an assignment for us. So when I think about us as Khalifa, we're supposed to engage and establish in the earth. We're supposed to engage and establish in the earth and create a system that perpetuates greatness. So we are supposed to execute greatness, fi sabilillah. We are to execute being creative and create things that further acknowledge the beauty and the power and the majesty of Allah. And in that, when we do those things and establish those things, then we find the joy and the happiness and the love for our hearts in us being obedient to the ask. So in the Quran, it says, Surah 2, Ayat 30 to 32, it says, behold, thy Lord said to the angels, I will create a Khalifa, or here in this translation it says, vicegerent on the earth. They said, wilt thou place therein one who will make mischief therein and shed blood, while we do celebrate thy praises and glorify thy holy name? He said, I know what ye know not. And he taught Adam the names of all things. He placed them before the angels and said, tell me their names if ye are right. They said, glory to thee of knowledge, we have none, save what thou hast taught us. In truth, it is thou who art perfect in knowledge and wisdom. So this system, the Lord of all systems of knowledge, we can only have the knowledge in which Allah has blessed us to have access to. But here's the thing that's beautiful about the generosity of our Lord. We do have access to it, but it is in our obedience and submission to his will that allows us to unlock what those are. So this space of us understanding who Allah is gives us an opportunity to better understand who we are. These attributes are a mirror, are an opportunity for us to see ourselves and how we show up in the world. Many times we'll adopt attributes of things that are not of Allah, and then we do not know how to move with justice. We do not know how to create. We create from a space of arrogance or create from a space of ego, and instead we have to create from a space of, would Allah be pleased with what I'm creating? And in Allah being pleased, that I be pleased with myself, does it give me joy and happiness, or am I doing this for the sight of men, for us to be able to be validated by those outside of ourselves? Because though there is a human need for us to want to feel connection and community, but what better community is it to feel than those who execute the ask that Allah has put on our heart by saying, be just, create, establish, create things, something out of nothing, that when you see it, see the potential that I put in that thing that has been created. That when we see a tree, that the time when someone saw a tree, did we think that that would turn into paper, and that from that paper create literature and books, or create art, or create homes, right? At first it was just the tree, but then there was an inspired system that Allah put upon the heart. And they said, okay, well, let me make this something that much greater, right? And creating it for the purpose of executing these beautiful new creations that is better for for all of humanity. That is not just one way of looking at how we live and establish community for ourselves, but it's for all of humanity. So if we look at these attributes ourselves, like, how did I connect that earlier today? I was thinking about when you go to on a job, right? That the CEO isn't always there watching everyone, but the CEO created a system. This is how things are going to go. This is how the finances go. This is how marketing goes. This is how they have a system in place, right? And they have been given the CEO entrusts the employees with the task at hand because he entrusts the vision that he places upon the employees, upon the team, right? So the team does not deviate from the system because then it will cause the crumble of the entire corporation and the entire company. So they see the system that's there, and then they may put in some of their own inspired thought that will say, oh, you know what, this is a good idea, but maybe we could expand it this way as far as marketing our business in this way. So when we look at using that model, not in the model in the human form, I always feel like I have to, and I won't apologize for that. I always feel I have to make sure that when I use certain analogies, there's nothing in me that suggests Allah in the human form, like in no way, shape, or form. I'm seeking to create a concrete vision that is palatable for us to understand the execution of what I am expressing, right? And this part of us knowing ourselves by knowing the attributes will also support us in alleviating the ideal of fear, right? That we no longer need to live with. Yesterday, the Imam spoke and he said that we move with zero fear, and I shouted in my car, and I was like, yes, because this is what knowing Allah does, that the fear of any man, any human being is eliminated because we know Allah to be just. We know Allah to be loving. We know Allah to be merciful. We know Allah to be gracious. We know these things, right? And in us knowing it, that when we pursue a thing and that inner voice that says to us, maybe you shouldn't do that. Just, stick to the basics, that we challenge it and we say, no, I have to stand. I am the servant of the great. So in me being the servant of the great, I have to show up great. I have to show up strong. I have to show up unwavering in my belief. I have to show up with truth, right? And that when we look at the time when it's time for us to create whatever it may be, and this is not just culturally, though culture is all interweaved into all of those things, that this idea of showing up and creating. What are you creating for? Are we creating to magnify the beauty and the glory of Allah who created us? Because the creativity is a gift. The creativity is a gift. When I think culturally about us, like we created a whole pie from a bean. Like this is a part of our Valawian culture. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there was ever anything in existence prior to that we brought it to the forefront of the community. And I knew it was next level when I saw on Food Network they had a bean pie recipe. And I was like, what? Like, there's no way, right? Because this creation has science connected to it, even within our history and our culture. But I would leave that to our pioneers to remind us of what that history is. That these things, that when we create something that is for us, by us, that it is enough that it doesn't have to look like what everyone else is doing. Because as we know, what everyone else is doing may not speak to the highest parts of ourselves. And in it not speaking to the highest part of ourselves, are we truly being in submission to what it is that Allah wants for us? Are we truly moving in a way that Allah will be pleased with us and that we are pleasing? Like, how are we moving with that same level of energy? So this creating something out of nothing speaks to, when I reconnected, because now that we establish and know that what that is for Allah, what does that mean for us, is to the intuitive nature. The intuitive nature, the ability for us to trust. Now, I work largely with women within being empowered in their spiritual movement and understanding their relationship with God. And this part of us really connecting to our intuitive nature, that women, we have a very strong intuitive nature. We have a very strong ability to create structure and create order, right? I have the Women of Mastery Award theme, who are just like warriors on the front lines, are women who want to create spaces where community can interact and where we can nurture the children, where we can be supportive of businesses, where we can create a space for laughter and warmth, a space where we can see each other reflected, a self-care space where we can really kind of just have a moment to release all of the other tasks outside of ourselves and really just show up in our womanhood, right? And that this being able to create something out of nothing is, there's always a vision in our mind. We'll get a vision like, it would be a good idea to do X. It hasn't happened yet. It's just, that's the vision, right? And that it doesn't exist, but we move in the energy towards making sure that it does happen. I am a firm believer that if you have the vision of it, it means that it's possible. If you visualize, it's possible. And to take it a step further, it's yours. So if you're visualizing, okay, yeah, we need a school, and it doesn't exist, it's not there, right? That means that, okay, it's possible. It's possible. And in that possibility, it is up to you to be obedient to the ask and execute. Will it be easy? No. But the idea came to you with ease, and Allah provides us all the resources necessary to execute it. Allah will not give us a vision for something so beautiful and so good and not give us all the resources necessary to ensure that it comes to life. And in this coming to life, this legacy mindset that brings us to the next level of what it is that we want to achieve, what it is that we want to have, is still all tied into understanding the attributes of Allah. When we understand the attributes of Allah, we can remember over and over again just how generous our Lord is, just how generous Allah was when He breathed into us and said, yes, you have the capacity to do these things, but you are not. But none of those, Allah encompasses all of these attributes. But this is the best way. It's like, okay, I need my servant to understand that this is how you are to move with justice. Be creative. Create something out of nothing. See a thing and see the possibilities and the potential of that thing. Be great in everything that you do. That show up. I created you in excellence, right? So if I created you in excellence, why move with mediocrity? It is our charge to move with greatness. We are responsible for the greatness that we show up in the world with and that we give off to the world. Yeah. So I'm at time, I believe, and I wanted to know how we will transition over into the next subject, or if I could just go for it.
Yes, KAMlLAH, we're here listening.
Okay. Okay, good. So, this is, I have to be honest with you. Like, I'm emotionally overwhelmed because it is, Allah is masterful. Let me just say that Allah is masterful. Go ahead.
KAMlLAH, let me say this to you as the daughter of Yolanda, your mother, Yolanda and Imam Fahim Shuaib. No one is more overwhelmed than the pioneers listening on this line who know that this community, and listening to your voice as you prepare to go into your next subject, listening to you, we know that this community is in capable hands. We, on Study Al-Islam, we have created a platform for our intergenerational leaders to feel safe and valued in this community. So we are grateful that you have accepted to be a new voice on Study Al-Islam, although you are not a new community member in this community. So please proceed with your next topic, which will, as a one who was born in this community to Muslim parents, how important is it to build memories, family memories during the holy month of Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah. You know, the topic has so many layers for me, because we see how the community is evolving, changing, and I know the energetic question that comes up is, how do we engage the youth and young adults? Right? And I know that's a big one. And the first thing I want to say is I want us to start I have an adult child, and who grew up in the community, still in the community, alhamdulillah, and married, and inshallah will begin his own family of children and so forth, right? That this idea of collecting memories is about creating space. And when I say creating space, many times we will execute an ask based on, when I was younger, I didn't have X, so I'm going to do that for young people, right? Like, oh, if I had Islam at your age, I would do this, and this. Well, you're not sure about that. You could say that now, but that's not an absolute fact. We can't think about what was past. We have to think about what is now. And in this creating the space, it is about honoring the human experience. I say a thing where I say that, you know, the soul is always intact, but there's a human experience that's happening that we are learning as, you know, first generation, second generation Muslims. There was a prior experience even before my parents became Muslim. They had an experience. And then when Islam came, it was like it gave it order and structure, right? And in that order and structure, then even still new as Muslims here in America, it still started to evolve. And we were at a tug of war with culturally, like, oh, you don't dress, we're not supposed to dress like that. You don't do that. You don't talk like that. What are these names? This. You know, there was a struggle there, but our pioneers stood firm. They didn't know what they were doing at that time as far as like what it would look like for us growing up. But as a result of them standing firm and saying, no, we're going to have a Claire Muhammad school. No, we're going to create business. We're going to have our own newspaper. We're going to establish all of these things in this area of what it is that we want to do. Here is where the shift, where we are now, that the shift has to happen. It's time for us to make your plate, right? And this analogy of me saying make your plate is you just create the space for the leadership to thrive and to be nurtured. You've done your work, and we are grateful, and we love you for it. Let us love on you. Let us love on you by creating the space for us to bring you the meal that you prepared for us. You slaughtered the animal, you made the hut, you did all of those things. Now it's okay to sit down and say, it's our turn to make your plate and feed you. But if we are so stuck on the idea of what we thought was supposed to happen or how it was supposed to happen. We're not honoring the human experience that has to happen to the young person, the individual, that makes them understand this beauty of Al-Islam. There's no way to avoid the struggle. There's no way to avoid the test. All of our youth will have the test. We would say, well, why aren't you always happy? No, there is a way to understand happiness by experiencing the sadness. I'm not saying encourage sadness. No. I mean, I'd be crazy to say that. But there is an experience that will happen, that significant emotional event, that if we have spaces created where there's a healthy healing can go on and not, I can't help but to say, and not judgment, then there's a space where healing can they can come back to the soil that can nurture and grow that seed. Because there is a space, each and every one of us as human beings are able, that will experience that. So when we create these spaces and this opportunity during Ramadan, have we ever really asked our children, what do you want? What are some things that you would want to do and experience? What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Or who are you? Just tell me about yourself. Because there is something about being heard. When I was hanging out with my niece, I was babysitting yesterday, that sometimes it's not even about me saying anything, but just listen to them tell whatever, go on and on and on about the color purple, or on and on about the color green, go on and on about Elmo, and then when they feel that they've been heard, this is your opportunity to drop a quick seed. Well, have you thought about that? And just leave it, because it's there, and that's where you nurture it. So these memories are about honoring that they're growing. So when we structure our Eves in the Oakland community, there's a strong focus on the youth. And, sometimes there'll be this few little areas of, well, what about the grown folks? Well, you grown, you can do whatever you want to. Like you can choose however you want to spend your time and your day. You can get together with your friends and have a dinner party but we're creating memories that will solidify their investment in a community that has to thrive beyond our physical body. Because they'll always remember when they come back, there is a sense memory about the joy and the excitement of the space that was created by the community. So there's a balancing act in the level of what we as adults need to be willing to sacrifice to ensure that these spaces are kept. And as an entrepreneur, I can't help but to mention that it is in business. I can't avoid the conversation of business, finances, economy, that these colleges are thriving from the alumni that reinvested into it. Yeah, they pay for school, that whatever, but there's a culture written in there in the college arena, because we know that educational institutions they preserve the values of those who have created those establishments, right? So if we're thinking twice about how we invest in our masjid, we're not holding space for the Khalifa. We're not holding space for nurturing the future president, governor, the future millionaire, billionaire, the future whomever, if we don't have a space that honors with excellence us standing in our greatness. Even if it's something that we don't see happening right now, this evolution of who we are, and I'm still connecting it to these attributes, like, okay, this idea of a college, there's something that's in us. It's like, we need an Islamic college, like a college that speaks to the Bilalian nature and what we have grown to be, and how we can create space for them to take on leadership roles on a broad stage for all of humanity, then it may not happen within your lifetime. But have you established a system that we can nurture beyond this physical body to ensure that it can keep going? And yes, finances are money is very much so involved in that. So even if we are not in a position to own the business, there are many, many young entrepreneurs that our community can support. And supporting it doesn't mean, you should do X, Y. That's not support. Because if they were supposed to create their business in that way, then they would. But if you have a community that honors them coming back in and letting us know who they are, seeing them, and then we stand in the beauty and greatness of who we are, then it's like they want to respond to the greatness of the human being. That I remember how good Sister So and So spoke to me. Like she was not talking down to me. She didn't see me as less than human. Like she held space for me. That these things we remember, we hang on to. Because when I think about the women in my community and me growing up, we have the Evening of Excellence Committee. I do what I do because of the nurturing and the space they held for me as a teenage girl to organize and plan events. And my contribution was put up front, like, oh, you're an artist. Okay, well, do this with the young people and they gave me, the freedom to be able to do that, which further nurtured how I interacted outside of the community as well as inside of the community. So how many spaces are we creating for our youth to show up in that way? How are we financially being able to, nurture their ideas and creating scholarship funds and so forth for them? Because we'll remember that. We think of these, how do we hang on to these memories? It's in the rituals and behaviors and habits that we keep going beyond Ramadan. Beyond just Ramadan. I still hear young people within our community talk about Junior Juma, where it was led by another student, and how that nurtured so many parts, just to see themselves, someone of their peer group on the podium made them strive to be like, yeah, I want to do that too, have the opportunity to be heard and share space. So these memories are, what are the rituals and habits that we are creating space that will etch those memories in the mindset of our young people? And that in us doing that, we'll find the joy. So this would be the step that I would say to in planning it. What does the community need? That starts from what we want. We want community. We want college. We want businesses. What do we need, right? So if the need may be we need more finances. Okay, so that's the need. How do we accomplish that? Let's go down the list of seeing what that does. And the beauty of how Allah is so masterful is that in the speaking it out loud, in the speaking it forward, that everything else will conspire to give us what we need. And in us getting what we need, we will always have what we want. Always. The want doesn't come before the need. So we know we need food, right? So when we talk about during Ramadan, we know we need food. I look in my kitchen, I have plenty of food. I might want lobster and steak, but are my needs being met? It's a different conversation when my needs being met. And the needs are within your community. It might be that's the sore spot that may need the work. Like, we need to bring more young people into our community. We need to create a space where they can feel spiritually safe to be able to talk about their journey in Islam. How do I navigate these different parts of my life, and give me the tools necessary to be able to make sure I understand my soul having this human experience when I'm thinking about school, when I'm thinking about relationships, when I'm thinking about friendships, when I'm thinking about how I deal with my family and my parents. And when I think about dreams and goals that I have in my mind and in my heart, those are things that I want to execute. But how do I bring back a realistic relationship with myself and Allah to ensure that am I making the right decision for myself and for my life? But it's very difficult for us to be able to execute that conversation if we don't understand who Allah is and who we are in relationship to that. Are we just? Are we? Do we move with mercy? Do we show grace? Are we creative? Do we create things out of nothing? Are we great? How do we feel about ourselves? Because the way we feel about ourselves, it becomes contagious. Like you'll see how people will gravitate to you. You won't have to even carry this big banner and say, I'm Muslim, I'm Muslim, I'm be Muslim. Be one that shows up in that space. And that draws good. Nothing can come from good but good. Like there's no other option there. So in this creating these memories, we have to first establish what are we creating space for? What is it that our young people need? What is it that our community needs, right? Because there's a great deal of individuals in our community who are business owners, but have not been offered a space for the businesses to come back and thrive and be nurtured. Or people who have business ideas, but there isn't a space being created that will ensure that their dollar is being recycled throughout the community. Or we have not decided to think bigger and believe that we are worthy of the $1 million idea that will further allow us to nurture and preserve the values of our community and our way of being. So it's really important to establish that kind of space. So have a youth board or conversation. Find another young person within your community that has a good connection with the young people within the community. We have been distracted with the I just need to find a way to live, right? And in that, we're neglecting those parts of our soul and ourselves that will maintain. We can always say, we use the term get the bag. We can always get the bag, but it's our soul and our spirit that can keep it. Money comes and goes. It's changing as we speak, but our soul is constant. Our soul is continuous. And in us being able to create this space that allows the soul to thrive and to be nurtured and to grow constantly, then there's always a safe space that allows that growth to take place. So I would say that that would be the starting point for preserving those things, that we honor those who honor us back. I don't know an experience of not being honored by the pioneers and the elders in my community. I don't know that life. I don't know that life of not being supported as a woman in leadership. I don't know that life. But there are others whose experience is contrary to that. I didn't grow up in a space where the men were oppressive. I grew up in a space where the men greeted with smiles. I grew up in a space where men walked me to my car when I did not feel safe. I grew up in that space. As a woman, now here's the other thing, the women in my community are frontliners. So that nurtured a part of me. I always expected to be protected by the men that I came around. That may not have been a reality in the society outward, but it was enough for me to be able to look at the mirror and go, yeah, this doesn't add up, because I grew up in a space where men did this. I grew up in a space where women did that, and I feel safe there. So whatever they're doing, I'm not attracted to that. That doesn't attract me to be like, well, I need to be over there. If there's a warped sense of protection and a warped sense of leadership, then it will be easy for one to be attracted warped sense of leadership and a warped sense of manhood and womanhood because that's all they know. They haven't seen something or experienced something different. So how do we create those spaces? We have to create those spaces beyond just the month of Ramadan, but during Ramadan, create the space with intention and intensity, and that those prayers reverberate throughout the year until we are blessed, inshallah, to see another month of Ramadan, another opportunity to pray for the life of our community inward, just between those walls, and then throughout humanity. And we may not see it within our time. I may not see it within my time, but I can rest assured, I can be pleased with myself in knowing that I laid my brick in the same way that those that came before me laid a brick for me to get to a certain point on my path. Now it's my turn to start laying bricks. But if we don't nurture those that when it's time for them to lay their brick and they're like, yeah, I'm not investing in that, then this is where the life stops. So that part of it is we have to all be invested in the mission and put ourselves aside. It has nothing to do with what we want. It doesn't matter. And I know that can be kind of like hard to take on, to be like, what you want does not matter in this case. But when you do what it is that is asked of you and what it is that is needed for a community, you'll get everything you want. Absolutely everything. I have no doubts in my mind. Allah has shown up in every single way possible that we are in a time, even right now, culturally, where those that can be whatever it is that they want to be, they are being very vocal and not with any shame of any of those parts. So we live in a unique time as Muslims where it's like, yeah, I'm Muslim. Like, what's wrong with that? That when I grew up, that wasn't something that was a freely conversation. But my son grew up in a time where they were fasting in school, and his friends gave space for him to be able to do so in a public school, right? And that's because there is a mindset of, okay, show up authentically and fully of who you are. So it is okay for us to show up fully. We don't have to tailor our tongues around how we show up. We just have to show up with greatness and with a level of mercy and grace and embracing the parts of this human experience that makes people recognize this is our way of life. Like, this is how we live. We don't do it just when it's convenient, but we do this all the time. So as a community, collectively come together financially, collectively come together in a way that allows us to nurture these seeds. I use this term cathedral mind, right? That there's communities of folks at one time, they would start a building that they knew would not be finished in their lifetime, but they nurtured their children to be prepared to finish this cathedral that was started. And this is where we are right now. Like this, who would have thought that we would have, Muslims in areas of politics, Muslims who are multimillionaires, Muslims, like these, they exist, they're there, they're present, and it was without needing to compromise who they are. And this is that time that we have to create space to further nurture that, because they will have the ability to nurture those that come after us, inshallah.
Wow.
I want to say just this one thing, that anything that I said, I'm so grateful, so grateful. Like, I know I'm going to have a good little crying fest after this, but anything that was of use or helpful to anyone on this line, know that it is not of me, it is from Allah alone. Any mistakes or anything that I may have said that was offensive to anyone, that is from me, and I ask of you to make dua for me with sincerity, as if you were praying for yourself, for me to gain understanding, for all of us to gain understanding and grow in this way of life of Al-Islam. And I thank you.
Well, I am so grateful, and I know everyone on the line is just so pleasantly surprised to hear from Imam Fahim Shuaibe's daughter. Sili al-Islam is doing exactly what you said. This is the intention, is to make a space for all of our intergenerational members, our community members, our children who have dedicated themselves to learning and growing into the best of themselves at all ages. So we want to thank you, KAMlLAH, for accepting to be a new voice on Study Al-Islam, because this is not the last time we're going to hear from you and those like you. We also have invited Imam Wazir's daughter, who's going to be a presenter on Study Al-Islam. And the entire year, or the entire month of Ramadan, we are going to have our young students from Bermuda who are going to close out our program. Our students from the Boy Scouts, from Masjid Muhammad's Boy Scouts. We have a young sister today who is a third-generation Muslim, whose parents came through the Nation of Islam, who is a Hafiz of the Quran, who will be on to close out the program today. So hearing your voice is a reassurance that we are on the right path, because I cannot tell you how you have motivated me and inspired me. And I know those pioneers on the line are motivated and inspired by your words of gratitude and appreciation for their work, but at the same time, to let them know that we are in capable hands of this next generation. I can only imagine the smile on your mother's face right now, listening to you speaking with that same voice of your father's Imam Fahim Shuaib. So I want to move forward and close out. But before we close, I want to say that we will be beginning Ramadan tomorrow. In the newsletter that came out today, there is a letter from the conveners letting us know that the moon was not sighted, and that our community will begin fasting the holy month of Ramadan tomorrow. The other thing I want to point out, which I'm finding so inspiring, is please decorate with your children. I'm even decorating my house with all kinds of Ramadan images of words that remind me. Did you find this important in your home, KAMlLAH?
You know, we were more of a party family. Like, this decorating is a new phenomenon within this generation. We spent most of our time at the masjid, and my mom pretty much made the masjid like Chuck E. Cheese. Like, it was a full-on arcade experience that happened within the masjid, in which, you know, inshallah, we'll be moving towards that again. That ideal of the decorating, absolutely. It is something that is new, you know, within our community, that we're doing that more of, and it is visually stimulating for our young people. It is something that they look forward to wake up and see their Eid gifts, and to do those things, and to give them money, and to create these different kind of competitions where they can win, you know, money or gift baskets and things like that. So absolutely having those things in place do etch in those memories for them, because every time when my nephews and nieces hear Ramadan, they're like, oh, Eid tomorrow, like they're ready. Like, where do we go to get our face painted, to get these games, to get these gifts, because they associate Ramadan with a beautiful experience, and that's what they will grow up with within their formative years. So yes, I think that it's a beautiful exchange and way of doing it.
And so one of the points that KAMlLAH brought to our attention was one of the collective efforts you can do at the masjid is the mothers can get together and take the children to the party store. These party stores have so many different decorations for the Eid. Buy decorations with them. Take them, let them go home and hang them from the walls. Put them on the door. These are so exciting and memories. Let's build memories of Ramadan for our children collectively. And we know COVID is still present. So again, I want to encourage you to get together with the children. Don't do it just with your family, because sharing this time with other families is what helps us to remember these experiences next year, the following year. These are small things that we can do and build upon. Get the children together at the masjid on one day and take them all to the party store and let them buy all the decorations that they want and take them home and let them decorate the masjid, let them decorate their homes and wake up, just as KAMlLAH just attests to these images of Ramadan being present in their home. We do need to move to close. And so the last thing I want to remind you is please read your newsletter. And we have gifts, Ramadan gifts, that we will be posting in the newsletter. And one of those Ramadan gifts that we hope that you will consider is that there is a CD of the 99 Attributes of Allah, Part 1, that was produced here with our Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts here at Masjid Muhammad. So consider purchasing those CDs for your young children to learn the attributes of Allah. And there is a link in the newsletter that you can look at a piece of that production. It is amazing. It is our children rapping the 99 attributes of Allah, which is what KAMlLAH was saying. Make a space for them so that they know nothing is taboo, but everything, there's a way for us to show the greatness and the magnitude and the dignity that Allah has permitted to exist in culture. So with that said, I want to just say also that we have ZARIA KARIM, who's going to close us out. She's a Hafiz of the Quran. Today is her birthday, and we do want to wish her a happy birthday. And she is a third-generation Muslim, a fruit from our orchard. ZARIA, are you on the line?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak. My name is ZARIA KARIM, and I am an 8th grader from Bowie, Maryland. Inshallah, today I will be reciting from Surah Baqarah, ayahs 6 through 12. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. ومن يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون. ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون. Now I will recite the English translation. Surely for those who have disbelieved, It is all the same whether you warn them or you warn them not, they do not believe. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and on their hearing and on their eyes. There is a covering, and for them awaits a mighty punishment. And among men there are some who say, we believe in Allah and the last day, yet they are not believers. They try to deceive Allah and those who believe, while they are not deceiving anyone except themselves, although they are unaware of it. In their hearts there is a malady, so Allah has made them grow in their malady, and for them there is a grievous punishment, because they have been lying. When it is said to them, do not spread disorder on the earth, they say, we are but reformers. Beware it is, in fact, they who spread disorder, that they do not appreciate. May Allah be pleased. Have a blessed day. Assalamu alaikum.
Ameen. Again, this young sister is a HAFIZA of the Quran. Her parents have supported her to learn to not just learn, but to retain the entire Quran. We are forever grateful, and we ask Allah to accept our collective efforts in service to Him for the betterment of humanity. Inshallah, we will see you tomorrow. Ramadan Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum.